Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Saturday upgrading commander build video here with the Tier 9 American Premium Battleship, the Missouri, infamous battleship in the game, infamous particularly in history and during World War II and what followed. So, basically an Iowa class battleship with some differences there. I'll talk through that a little bit when we talk about her accuracy and kind of what I learned in particular there, as I had a decent number of games to finally wrap my head around the ship, and then the last game I had, I'm going to feature that on Monday, as is a pretty good battle, and I had a little bit of more of a learning curve at first with Missouri than I was expecting, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I'll get into that, and I think overall she's a pretty good battleship as a whole. Now, with that being said, what kind of battleship is Missouri? Is she a brawler? Is she a long range? Is she a mid-range? Missouri embodies a mid-range battleship. I would argue more strongly, more so than Iowa. I'll go ahead and say it now. I was going to wait till later. But the dispersion difference between Missouri and Iowa is enough to notice that you're going to be more frustrated with Missouri's main battery than Iowa's main battery. So compared to Iowa, you have a 20 meters, it's 20 meters better in terms of the horizontal dispersion, and about 10 meters better vertical dispersion. Basically what I'm saying is that the tighter, the lesser in value in number and horizontal and vertical dispersion, the better, the tighter shell groupings. So at that being said, like I think for example, with Missouri, you have 20 meters more in distance of horizontal dispersion and then 10 in vertical dispersion, which means you get a kind of more unreliable salvos, so to speak, like shots that you can feel quite confident with Iowa in making. You're kind of going to be frustrated with Missouri, like, why did that just happen, right? So that really requires Missouri to really embody the mid-range battleship. I mean, of course, you have the 9.5 kilometer radar as well to back that up with. But in mid-range battleship, in the high tier, I say it's like 12 to 15 in the game. I think once you start going out further, you'll be frustrated, although sometimes you can have some rewarding salvos, not always. The Sigma of both Iowa and Missouri is the same with that as well. So, with that being said, mid-range battleship, the radar will help her out in close quarters, and I'll have some examples of that on Monday. That being said, her armor scheme, 32 followed up by 38. The deck you can see is also 38 in the mid. So a little bit squishy there, if you will, with larger heavy cruiser caliber sap will eat you up, right? I think Venezia sap pins 51 as an example. So kind of that same line, if you will, in terms of how Iowa, handles it as well. If we peel some things away here, you can see the Citadel here is actually a waterline Citadel. I think I got Citadel once during my games the other day. I tried to work on angling as much as I could, but it is possible. It's more like the shell kind of has to come in higher up at an angle to punch through and hit, since it is waterline beneath waterline Citadel there. Your main battery guns, you have 432 millimeter frontal plate, 241 side, 184 top, and then the back is 305. I have had my turrets knocked out. I think of like maybe almost 10 games I've played with Missouri. I've had my turrets knocked out 2 or 3 times. I think one of the games was twice in the battle. It was because the battleship caliber was hitting me in the side shell, side of the gunmount armor when I was engaged with another battleship. So I'll get into that as well. Now, as that being said, let's go and talk about her modules. So of course, nothing to upgrade here. I'm running Halsey as the commander. So you're going to see reload time 30 seconds, minimum shell type switching time 12 seconds because of the enhanced gun feeder on the Halsey. 180 return time of 31.3, then 5,700 HE shell damage, AP shell damage 13,500 in terms of the maximum. Hull 78,300 hit points, and I don't remember if that's the exact same as Iowa. Out of curiosity, I'm just going to click on Iowa here and see. So it looks like without 79,000, come back over here. 78,300. So actually 700 hit points less. Fascinating. But we're going to throw the Charlie Kilo combat signal on the ship. And so that's going to bring us up to 82,250. So if you're playing randoms, ranked, or clan battles per se, even with Missouri, you should be looking to run this combat signal. Then we have the gunfire control system. Main battery firing range 23.4. Very nice. You don't get a spotter plane, but it's really difficult, I would say, in terms of, I mean, it's, again, Missouri's dispersion isn't terrible. It's just not as good as Iowa. So if you're really savoring those long distance salvos, you know, Iowa will reward you better than Missouri in that regard, but still possible to land some nice devastating salvos with broadsides on Missouri. With that being said, especially if you're at mid-range. Propulsion 33 knots. We take the Charlie Kilo, or not Charlie Kilo, Sierra Mike, excuse me, 34.7 knots top speed. Now, when it gets into, maybe I should talk about the features of the ship as well, since premium. Like, you earn more credits with Missouri. Beneficial service, the ship has reduced post-battle service cost. No retraining required when you assign commanders to the ship. Permanent bonus, a free bonus package is linked to this ship. So that's actually really nice because it's one of Missouri's traits. And then you have a permanent camouflage as well. So this, if you're considering to pick up Missouri while she's available currently in the game, during this update on the 10-year anniversary, this is some things that I want to highlight there. Now, the first slot, normally I would go for the main armaments mod 1. This will help with the issue that I was having a little bit yesterday in terms of the main baddie becoming incapacitated. It reduces that chance by negative 20%, while improving your main battery survivability by plus 50% and improving the repair time by 20%. So 20% faster you get the turrets back. I opted to go for the damage control party mod 1. This increased the consumable action time by plus 40%. On the commander, I have a certain skill that was bringing me up to 22 seconds of action time on the DCP. With the damage control party mod 1, if you have the coal, it's 12,750 coal with the 25% off coupon, or it's 17,000, I think it is at full cost. Brain's a little bit foggy right now. But we get 30.8 second action time. So I'm thinking of subs, I'm thinking of aircraft carriers, I'm thinking of Dutch airstrikes, I'm thinking of, what was the other thing I just, subs, CVs, aircraft hybrids in the game as well. So I had an Audacious get 2 strikes off on me, and my DCP was still going, so it nullified him perhaps setting another fire on me as I was rotating between my DCP and repair party as it was towards the end of the game. So I like this. Otherwise, I would highly recommend main armaments mod 1 if you don't have the coal. Like, this is always a solid choice for most battleships in the game. But there's a couple battleships that benefit out of having this longer action time on the damage control party action time. Yeah. Second slot, there's honestly 2 different things we could do here. The damage control system mod 1, risk of catching fire -5%, risk of flooding -3%. I've taken this for now as I wanted to test it out and see, because the other option here would be the surveillance radar mod 1, which should improve our action time of our radar by plus 20%. So as an example, pull up my trusty calculator here. It's a 35-second action time right now. So if I go times 1.2, it'll go up to 42 seconds. So you have 7 more seconds of radar time. That is, you're only ever going to get for yourself 2 salvos off because it's a 30-second reload time, right? So you pop the radar, you see fire, and then you've got maybe 2-3 seconds to get another shot off. And then, of course, adrenaline rush, you might be a little more time. So you personally are only ever going to get 2 salvos off with your radar. You won't get any more. No burst fire gimmicks, no main battery load booster here, none of that, right? But what I would argue is, where Surveillance Radar Mod 1, it's not about just you, it's also about your team, right? So you might keep that destroyer, you might keep that submarine lit a little bit longer, or that even that cruiser in that smoke for your team to polish it off. So it's a little bit more of a team play, because you don't have the faster rate of fire compared to, like, you know, Des Moines, of course, as an example. So to each their own. So this is not a bad decision to run here. Again, it's another coal investment. But I was honestly surprised how many destroyers were disrespecting my 9.5 kilometer radar in battle yesterday. Maybe some more of the newer players don't realize it at the higher levels. I don't know. But otherwise, damage control system just to reduce the risk of your catching fire and your risk of flooding. The third slot, we've taken the main battery mod 2. This is improving our main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. I think without it, it was like 36, 37 seconds, which I really like to do what I can to get the main battery traverse speed down to closer to 30 seconds if possible. Now, then another reason why I'm running it here is on the American battleships, you don't get the aiming systems mod 1, whatever it's called here. That gives you negative 7% on your vertical and horizontal shell dispersion. So normally I would be like, yes, run that on Missouri. You don't get that option on the American battleships. So what we've done instead is we've gone for the main battery mod 2. And there's a couple times it was very helpful, especially dealing with some destroyers and some targets that presented themselves at the right moments to get my turrets 5 seconds, 6 seconds faster on the target. So I do like this. Otherwise, you know, I don't really see a point for the artillery plotting room mod 1. Main battery range plus 16%. You know, you already have a 23.4. If it was Iowa, I could see that being more of a case for it. Now on Iowa too, if I'm not mistaken, you also get access to a spotter plane. So then again, not as needed there. But the dispersion is just like, yeah. And then when you have a 9.5 kilometer radar and you're going to potentially pick up submarines and destroyers or a cruiser and a smoke screen, yeah, I want to get my turrets faster on that destroyer, that Changmu, that Yu Yang with the deep water torps that's going to eat me alive for breakfast, right? So you have that. Of course, you could take secondary battery mod 1 if you want to improve your secondary range with the 127 millimeter armament across Missouri. It's 7 kilometer range now. So boost that by 20%, and that could be a possibility here. But this would be my first option overall. Fourth slot, we've done the damage control system mod 2. This is reducing the or improving our fire extinguishing time and flooding recovery time by negative 15%. So basically, fires and floods don't last as long. Again, we're in the days of hybrids, Dutch ships, submarines, lots of torpedoes across all classes, and CVs, whatever, so on and so forth. So it's really neat for your survivability to keep you alive in the action, especially since you're going to be playing more mid-range in Missouri, where Iowa can kind of do both the mid and the longer range more easily than Missouri. I'm going to keep making that comparison there. You know, so if, let's say, you've went up the American battleship tech tree, you really liked Iowa, I'm just trying to... It's a good way. If you like playing Iowa, you'll like Missouri. The only frustration you're going to have is just that the guns aren't quite as accurate, but I mean, again, it's only 20 meter difference horizontally and 10 meters vertically, so there's enough difference you'll notice. Yeah, I really wouldn't recommend anything else here. I mean, you could do propulsion mod 1, but I don't really recommend that here for Missouri. This slot, the concealment system mod 1, your total conceal, you get down from, if you like, let's say you have this conceal on the commander, I think you'll see 14.1. And then you take conceal here on the fifth slot, that drops you down to 12.7, which is pretty good. And it's very helpful for that mid-range, that 12 to 15 kilometer range I'm speaking of. So I would definitely recommend concealment system. Not really a point, in my opinion, to run the other two here. That's just me. The sixth slot, you do have several options. Now, I have taken the artillery plotting room mod 2. This is something the American battleships get, and it kind of makes up for not having the aiming systems mod 1 in the third slot. So I think Wargaming, they didn't want to stack 2 for accuracy. They felt like that'd be too unfair of an advantage, and probably, and so they just only gave you the one option. So this is something more unique to the American battleships in the game, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there is another tech tree battleship line that gets this access to this upgrade. But I have taken it, and it's a negative 11% on your maximum main battery shell dispersion. And I also run this on Iowa as far as I remember. If I don't, then I would definitely switch over to that. Your second option could, of course, be the main battery mod 3. Main battery reload time is going to drop by negative 12%, so then you're probably looking more like a 27 second reload time, something like that, about. Just a little under 26.8. perhaps. So you could do that, right? but then you're going to be even more frustrated with the main battery guns because, again, if you're coming from someone like me who really likes playing Iowa to Missouri, like, yeah, there's going to be a bit of a tension there in that regard. You also have Auxiliary Armaments Mod 2. This is really you take for secondary battery reload time, and particularly the AA. I don't recommend it here. This would be my first option. This would be my second option. You can try them both out, of course, as well. And right now, all upgrades are half off during the 10-year anniversary, so keep that in mind if there's some ships that you're equipping and you want to try out some different things. Won't be as expensive. But if I go to sell it, it's only half the price, $750,000 versus $1.5 million when it's full price $3 million, right? So do keep that in mind. Armament-wise, high explosive shell. You have, these are 406s, just like Iowa, just like you got on the Montana. 5,700 damage. You do 36% chance of causing fire on a target. You pin 68 millimeter. Initial shell velocity, 820 meters a second. On the armor piercing, the initial velocity is a bit slower. It's 762 meters a second. It's not a huge difference, but it's a tiny difference there. But maximum damage, 13,500. This is very punishing on broadside carriers, battleships, battle cruisers, very light cruisers. I think it's a standard shell fuse time on the AP of this 406s, so that means it's a 0.033 second fuse time. So it doesn't have an improved or shortened fuse time like I think St. Vincent in Conqueror, where you're more likely to get a citadel with your armor piercing on lighter cruiser targets. So this works better for like ships that have more armor, that the armor piercing shell is not likely to like be set off until it gets into that citadel, you know, it pinning it and then exploding, causing that full maximum damage. Depth charge airstrike, 10 kilometer range. You get 2 available flights, 1 attack aircraft per flight, 2,050 hit points, and then you get 2 bombs in the payload, so 4 between both flights, with maximum damage 4,200. Consumable wise, as we talked about with the first upgrade slot, you have the 30.8 second action time with those two together. Otherwise, it would just be 22 seconds with the commander build that I have set up. We have an 80-second cooldown time with an unlimited number of charges. Our repair party is HP per second 411. If I run India Delta, it's going to jump up to 493. Recommend if you're playing ranked random clan battles. Your normal action time would be 28 seconds. Again, because of the commander perk I have here on Halsey, it's 30.8, which I'll show you in a moment. Cooldown time, 80 seconds, and we get 5 of these as well. Stock would be 4. The ace up the sleeve, so to speak, with Missouri that apparently a lot of destroyer players don't seem to be very aware of right now these days would be the surveillance radar, 9.5 kilometer. So you get some different ship lines. You know, the Americans hit like, what is it, 8, 5, 9, 9, 5, 10. We kind of hit that whole spectrum there. So the challenge with the surveillance radar I have found, and I'll talk about it in Monday's video, is just knowing when to use it versus when not to use it. If there's something, a destroyer in a smoke screen, you know, 8 kilometers away, yeah, use the radar. That's pretty present. Other times you're going to be like, I know I'm being spotted, but is he within my 12.7 concealment? Like, let's say he's between 10 and 12, or is he actually underneath 9.5? I don't really know. So you'll be able to catch more inexperienced players off guard, and I feel like yesterday I was just running into a lot of inexperienced players who just weren't respecting the radar, which is why gun feeder is important in my opinion on Halsey. Combat signals, the whole gambit I have been running here would be something like this. Now, November Foxtrot helps the cooldown time on the damage control party, so it drops from 80 to 76. And then 80 to 76 and 120 to 114, getting our radar back up off, ready to go faster, which actually I needed a little bit yesterday. And then, you know, we're going to, the fire extinguishing time is going to reduce by negative 20%, so is flooding. We're going to buff the AA damage, so among tier 9 battleships, the AA on Missouri is decently strong. So just bumping that up a little further. So you can see the rating go from 89 to 90. Damage by shell explosions, 1610. Continuous damage, 439. And those both jumping up as well. and then the ram flag. Now, in terms of the commander, I have Halsey on my Des Moines, but I have this particular build, as I referenced in yesterday's video, set up for Wisconsin. So far, I'm liking it. I had a couple times where my team just absolutely fell apart, and I needed to get my heals off of cooldown even faster with the improved repair party readiness, if it shows up here on the screen. There were other times I was like, I'd kind of like basic survivability to put out the fire and floods a little faster. So let me go ahead and kind of get into that. I'll talk about this 21-point build and then some other possible variabilities you could be running as well. So in running Halsey, he first has some talents. I activated the Confederate talent yesterday. If you're wondering how to get Halsey, you're new to the game, you need to come into campaigns, and you're going to scroll over here to the hit hard, hit fast often campaign, and he is the last one here. Upon the final task, you will receive him at 15 points. So he's there if you're newer to the game and you're wondering. I actually want to have a darker background there. But he has the Implacable talent, main battery reload time, negative 20%, torpedo tube reload time, negative 10%, aircraft preparation time, negative 20%. But you're just getting faster in main battery reload time, so when you're pairing that with the Adrenaline Rush, if you activate that talent, it's actually quite good. My team collapsed completely on the northern flank, and so then it was just me farming lots of more damage and spreading it out and activating the Implacable talent. So that was fun, but we didn't live too much longer after that. Sometimes when you activate this Halsey talent, it seems the death is imminent or the game is about over. But if you purposely are trying to farm the Confederate, which you can do, you can get it more earlier in the game. It's a little bit more of a veteran player guide move there. You also have Untraceable. It's once you get the double strike achievement, your ship's detectability range will drop by a negative 10%. Squadron detectability range, negative 10%. So you could drop this 12 down to like 11.5, something like that, if you managed it. But let's be honest, the Confederate is a lot more funner, and then the Untraceable, perhaps if you run a destroyer or a cruiser, it gets quite fun there. But he has a couple enhanced skills, the Gun Feeder and the Grease the Gears. Now, if you decide to go with a different commander, let's say you have John Doe or George Doe. For battleships, they also have the same enhanced skill. You can pick both of these up in the armory, one for 1,500 doubloons, the other for 35,000 coal. So say you don't have Halsey yet, then you could be running that setup here. But you just don't have access to the talents, so I just wanted to make a note of that here. But walking through the 21 points, Gun Feeder, negative 60% on the main battery shell type switching time versus the now standard negative 40%. So that gives you a 12-second versus like 17, 18-second shell type switching time, which again I think is needed a bit more, certainly so with Missouri when you have some potential destroyers around and you want to switch to high explosive away from the armor piercing. Grease the Gears, plus 25% on the main battery traverse speed versus the standard plus 20%, which helps us get down to that 31.3 second, 180-degree turn time. A 6-point commander, I would then recommend taking Adrenaline Rush. It enhances your ship's perimeters for each 1% of HP lost. So as an example, your reload time is going to drop from 30 to 29.5, 29, 28.5 to 28. Just depends on how many hit points you have remaining. And then, of course, as you heal, that erodes the Adrenaline Rush skill. A 10-point build, I would go Fire Prevention Expert next for the 4 points. So risk of catching fire, negative 10%. Maximum number of fires, -1. If you're new to the game, if you don't have fire prevention, right now 4 fires could be set on your Missouri. 1 on the bow, 1 on the stern, and 2 on the superstructure. What fire prevention does is rather than having 2 fires ticking all the damage away from your hit points, it combines it into just 1 fire. And then you don't have 2 fires ticking of damage worth on your ship, only 1 fire ticking. And most people are targeting your superstructure. And so that's kind of valuable, in my opinion, to be running, especially at the higher tier with how much HE gimmicks there are in the game now. After fire prevention for a 14-point build, I would probably then take Concealment Expert get you down from that 14.1, I think it is, to 12.7. And then Emergency Repair Expert would be my next 4 points. So that's an 18-point build we're talking about now. This is the skill that's giving us the plus 10% of action time on the damage control party and the repair party consumable, effectively taking us on both from 28 to 30.8 when we're running the slot 1 damage control party mod 1 skill here. In addition to that, we get another repair party, so we're going from 4 repair parties to 5 repair parties. 21-point commander, so your last 3 points, improved repair party readiness. It activates over time, every time your ship receives potential damage equal to 100% of the ship's base HP. So our base HP survivability is 82,250. So this will activate every time you have potential damage equal to the 100% of your ship's base hit points value. So repair party consumable cooldown time is negative 0.8%. Activates once per battle after your ship receives 2 million potential damage. You'll go from 5 repair parties to 6 repair parties with this build. So another value there. And part of why I like the improved repair party readiness is when you get your repair party off cooldown faster. So this will drop down from 76 to, like, let's say 70 in seconds and under. This depends on how much potential damage you have, as that's calculated as a whole. We have a longer action duration time on the damage control party. So it really helps you navigate survivability a bit better in the game when you kind of go for this build between this upgrade, these consumables, and this skill. So I have liked this build so far. Now, other examples of what you could be running here, you could drop the improved repair party readiness and take basics of survivability. You're putting out your fires and floods faster by another 15%. So that skill stacks well on this upgrade as an example, if you're trying to go for some synergy there as an example. And then also modular restoration time negative 15%. So basically, like, your main battery, your steering gears, your engine will come off, will be repaired faster if either of those should be incapacitated. So that's a pretty good skill here as well. Otherwise, other skills I might consider here. It's not a secondary build battleship. It's not meant to be punished and take lots of damage in this regard either when I look at those skills. You know, you could build into the AA. If you honestly want to build into the AA, then you're talking about, I would say, if you get the Research Bureau points, if you have access to that, you're looking at Illinois, which has a better continuous damage of AA and damage by shell explosions. We have a rating of 94, and that's not with that activated, so now it goes to 96. So I have an AA build Battleship Commander being my George Doe that I'm running on a couple of my American battleships, where Halsey, I have shifted him from being like my Ohio secondary build to being my Wisconsin, my Missouri, or Ohio main battery build, not a secondary build future here, because, you know, Ohio also has that 40-second cooldown time on the repair party. So I don't really recommend going for an AA route. You could train another American commander and then, like, for example, swap him on here if you're feeling a little more dicey and you want to run an AA build. But again, I think there's you got some other options here in terms of the AA spectrum of the American battleships. I think the other guy I was running this commander on was also for Louisiana, maybe? Yeah, don't remember now. You could take Brisk if you really wanted to. 12.7 is your conceal. So that basically means coughing up improved repair party readiness. But then your speed is going to jump from 34.7 to, doing math in my head, 34, 35, 36, 37, something like that, when you're not firing. And then you take that last 1 point and I would say slap it on an emergency repair specialist, so you get your DCP and your repair party consumable cooldown time reduced by negative 3%. Reduced by 3%, that's how I'm supposed to say that. But this skill has good synergy with this skill as well, right? But then it's like, what else would you consider giving up here? So that's a possibility if you cough that one up, took these two, or basic survivability is another option in giving up this skill. Otherwise, I don't really recommend any other type of builds on Missouri. Now, there could be some other ones. Maybe there's a strange competitive build that you could run, but you don't really see Missouri played in competitions like King of the Seas, stuff like that. But, you know, it usually ends up being tier 10, not tier 9 in that regard. So unless there's some like sleeper build I'm unaware of with Missouri, this is probably what I would say is best, or basics or survivability, or taking brisk in emergency repair specialist. But you saw on my on my Vermont, I run a brisk build, and then I take this skill here as well, I believe. So yeah, with that being said, I think it's going to bring the video to a close today. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you're considering picking up Missouri, I think in terms of the value of the ship's worth it overall, whether it's just a historical ship to collect in the game. You know, for myself as American, of course, I'm going to be biased here. You know, very strong value there in terms of that. You know, it's part of how wargaming markets off of these historical ships in the game. Like now we're getting USS Laffey, right? But if you like Iowa, I think you'll like Missouri as well. The kind of the gimmick switch off here is just having the radar, which is kind of fun to just be like, hey, destroyer, you thought you were safe, but I've got a radar. And that's a little bit of a fun element, though a bit dicey that you're putting yourself in that kind of situation where you have a destroyer within 9.5 of you. A red one, right? So if you liked this video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you subscribed, thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.